Now, are there risks involved with tax lien and tax deed investing? The answer is yes. This type of investing is merely a subset of real estate investing. So you have to consider some of the same things you would if you bought your own property. From my experience, the three main risks to consider are bankruptcy, environmental contamination, and not understanding the market value. Bankruptcy is a risk that can slow down or even change your investing return. When doing research, check to see if an owner or a business has filed bankruptcy. Ultimately, you are a secured creditor, but bankruptcy may slow down the process of you being repaid. Be sure to understand the different types of bankruptcy, whether it's an owner or a business, and also understand the state homestead exemptions, which I go through in Tax Liens Unleashed. Environmental contamination. Well, this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I studied geology and environmental science and worked for several companies investigating and cleaning up contaminated properties and hazardous waste sites. I still occasionally do some consulting because it's interesting work and it fascinates me still. What you need to know from a tax lien investing perspective is commercial properties have more risk than residential homes or land. So make sure you understand what your possibilities are as far as different types of potential contamination. Now, I have some of those listed here on the slide. For example, lead-based paint or asbestos or mold, or properties near gas stations or landfills or dry cleaners. The list goes on and on. But in general, if you stick to residential type properties, either houses or land, lots, acreage, you're typically going to remove about 90% of the risk. But still, you should consider any possibility, and any more that includes natural disaster possibilities such as flooding or wildfires, hurricanes, and a whole host of other issues. So I have an exhaustive discussion, as you can imagine, in Tax Liens Unleashed, talking about types of environmental contamination to consider. And the reason we consider this is because if you foreclose on a tax lien and it has been contaminated, according to environmental law, you could be liable for cleanup of a contaminated property. That's just how the laws were written. So be sure to do your due diligence, and by the time you go through talking to me or reading Tax Liens Unleashed, you're going to be a semi-expert in environmental contamination. When you are buying a commercial property, it is common to do an environmental assessment. In the industry, it's called a Phase 1 environmental assessment or Phase 1 ESA. You can do your own mini Phase 1 by searching online resources like EPA Gov or FEMA's website for flooding, or state environmental agencies like Cal EPA or Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Mostly this is common sense. If the property is in a floodplain, be careful. If it was built before 1978, it could have lead-based paint or asbestos. Remember, these are things you should consider when buying any type of real estate, including your own home. The biggest risk is not understanding the market value. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, essentially I mean overpaying for a tax lien or a tax deed where the underlying value is not worth it. So that should be common sense. You don't want to overpay for anything. So what that means is you need to understand how to find the value of a property. And you can find values online with the counties. They understand pretty well what most properties are worth because they want to maximize their taxes. So that's your first check, is to check with county values. If you want to take it a step further, look on some other resources. There are plenty of realtor websites. Zillow is a great resource to understand property values. And in some cases, I even reach out to real estate agents in the area and ask what properties in this particular area are going for and what I should be aware of and what the risks are. So, what else should you look out for? Well, definitely look out for odd-shaped parcels that don't make sense when you read the legal description. Be careful with water rights, condemned buildings, or property with deed restrictions that won't allow you to build or have certain restrictions that would impede the value. Also, a big beware here, red flags are going up everywhere. HOA fees. What do I mean by that? Homeowners Association or Property Owner Association fees. Be aware of those and understand how much they cost.